You know, it was one of the most amazing weekends in the history of the United States of America. So much was accomplished, so many amazing things for the citizens of this country by President Donald Trump and his administration. Peace in Pakistan and Iran. Peace, or a step closer toward peace, in Ukraine and Russia. Not to mention a monumental drug deal to reduce the price of prescription drugs, and a China tariff agreement that will stop the tariff war between us and our largest trading partner. All of that and all the fake news media wants to talk about is the free plane that President Donald Trump is getting from Qatar. What's up? This is Mark Kaye, Saves the Republic, and man, I'm stoked. I'm so excited that you're here, that you decided to join me. I hope you had a wonderful Mother's Day if you're a mother. And if you're not a mother, hopefully you made some Mother's Day very, very fantastic. Yours, or, maybe someone else's. Listen, before we do anything else, make sure you subscribe to this particular channel. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, because we got a lot of stuff happening here in the next few weeks. Something happened earlier today with YouTube that it was kind of funny. And I may share that with you here in just a minute. Although I don't know. Maybe I'll just wait until I'm able to sort things out. But it's been a very exciting day. Lots going on. I want to make sure that all the content that we produce, whether it's here or elsewhere, whether it's on Rumble, whether it's our podcast, I want to make sure that you get it as soon as we can get it to you. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, the like button, set the notifications. And this is very important. If you're listening to the podcast, tell that podcast platform you're on, I want more of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Whenever Mark Kaye produces some new content, I want it delivered to me instantly. I don't want to have to wait for it. I don't want to have to beg for it. I just want it right there, ready to go. All right. Now that that's out of the way, let's get started. So, couple things. Okay, you know what? Before we get started, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. I don't know if you saw this video, but I posted this yesterday, this video that popped up about Emmanuel Macron and what's his name? Keir Starmer, and the other guy, Chancellor Merz from Germany. Apparently they were on a train coming back from Ukraine. They were in Kyiv, where they were meeting with Vladimir Zelensky. I imagine they were dropping off some cash, maybe some checks. I don't know if he takes like American Express these days. I don't know what his deal is. But on the train ride back, these reporters came into their little compartment, like they've got a little private compartment like Harry Potter had when he would go on the Hogwarts Express back to Hogwarts. Anyway, so they're sitting in there, and it was described to me as a little baggie of white powder. Now they're claiming it's a tissue. And what happened was when the reporters came in and the photographers came in, Emmanuel Macron grabbed the tissue / little baggie and hid it. And then there was a spoon, like a little, the kind of spoon that some people, not me or anyone I know, but the kind of spoon that some people use to, I guess, snort cocaine is what. And that apparently there was one of those on the table. That was what I heard originally. And what's his name? Chancellor Merz grabbed that. And I have the video here. You can just see it for yourself if you haven't seen it yet. Here they are coming in. Bonjour, bonjour. And you can see on the table there, it looks like a little white crumpled up baggie of powder, or I guess it could be someone's used tissue. And it's sitting there, and then they all sit down, and what happens is when they get in the seated position, they realize there's photographers. Macron grabs it and slips it. You can see right here, he grabs it and he slips it under his shoulder there, and then the spoon's gone as well. So there's two, I guess you would say, theories going on with this particular instance. One is that it was a baggie of illicit drugs and a spoon used to administer those illicit drugs to one's nostrils, or it could have also been, a used hanky and a coffee stirrer. I don't know. Maybe in the comments, if you want, you can go ahead. You can say what you think it is, whether you think it's or you can send me an email or something like, whatever. But I'm just curious because I've heard both now. I've heard baggie full of cocaine and a cocaine spoon, and I've also heard just someone's, nasty used handkerchief that was sitting out there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That's something that you may see pop up today. I wanted you to be sure about it. Anyway, all right. So Donald Trump, very busy weekend It's always a busy weekend in the Donald Trump's world, but it's extremely busy this weekend. In fact, I was on Newsmax this morning. They wrote to me and they said, "Can you come on Newsmax this morning?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." I was on Wake Up America with Charla and Mark Lauder. And what happened was we started talking about, they send out a list of topics. And every time I'm on, they're like, here are the topics that we're going to be probably discussing. Here are the topics we're going to be talking about. And we all of a sudden, like for whatever reason, I guess this week, it was just, the topics were just, it was incredible. There were so many topics. It was a bevy, one might say, of topics. It was, Iran-Pakistan ceasefire agreement, which happened on Friday night, but after everything else that's happened, it seems like it was even longer ago than that. Then there was the China deal where Scott Bessent and Jameson Greer were able to go to Geneva and actually not just begin discussions, not just begin talks, but come back with an actual agreement in place. They hammered out a 90-day agreement with China, and that was amazing. And then on top of all that, Donald Trump yesterday on Truth Social says, "My next Truth Social post will be the most important and most consequential one of all time." And then later on in the day, he announced he was slashing prescription drug prices. Really an incredible amount of things going on. And the executive order that he signed today is probably going to have an immediate and noticeable effect for, I would say, 70, 80% of Americans? How many Americans are on prescription drugs? I imagine it'll eventually work to bring down insurance costs as well, because most of the money that insurance pays for, or a lot of it, is to subsidize your drug plans. Subsidize the R&D apparently on these drug things. Anyway, Caroline Leavitt, before the executive order was signed today, was on with our good buddy Brian Kilmeade, who celebrated a birthday last week, by the way. It's very happy belated. I think he's 60 now. Getting on there. But anyway, Brian Kilmeade was hanging out with Caroline, was talking to Caroline Leavitt. Here's what she said about the executive order President Donald Trump signed just hours ago.
First of all, it cannot be overstated how big of a deal this executive order that President Trump will be signing in a couple of hours is for American families, and especially our seniors who have been ripped off by very large and rich pharmaceutical companies. The United States of America is less than 5% of the world's population, yet we purchase 75% of Big Pharma's profits. We pay an astronomical amount in comparison to other countries around the world. So the president is signing an executive order today that is going to implement most favored nations drug pricing, and is going to reduce the cost of drugs in this country by more than half at least. America is going to pay a better rate and a fairer rate to the rest of the world. That's what the American people deserve. This is huge news. And also, I will add, we know that healthcare costs and drug prices were the #1 driver of Biden inflation. So not only are we bringing those down, but we are ending Biden inflation once and for all.
Yeah, all good things. All good things. We're ending Biden inflation. We're bringing down drug costs. We're getting most favored nation status. We're going to cut everyone's drug prices by half at least, if not more. That's awesome news. And when President Donald Trump got into the Oval Office, when he got into the work today, and he had Dr. Oz with him and RFK Jr. and what's the name, Qatari. I don't know. I can never pronounce that guy's name. There's a lot of letters in it. He said, look, here's what's happening. We're going to cut down drug prices. For too long, the United States of America has been subsidizing the rest of the world. Our costs are 10 times what drug costs are in other countries, and that ends today.
So today, Americans spend 70% more for prescription drugs than we spent in the year 2000. Think of that. Our country has the highest drug prices anywhere in the world by sometimes a factor of 5, 6, 7, 8 times. It's not like they're slightly higher. They're 6, 7, 8 times. There are even cases of 10 times higher. So that you go 10 times more expensive for the same drug, that's big numbers. Even though the United States is home to only 4% of the world's population, pharmaceutical companies make more than 2/3 of their profits in America. So think of that. With 4% of the population, the pharmaceutical companies make most of their money, most of their profits from America. That's not a good thing.
And that ends today. President Donald Trump signing that executive order saying, look, we're not going to do it anymore. We are not going to let the American people pay for the drugs of the rest of the world. We're going to pay for our own drugs, and we're going to pay a lot less.
I am doing this for the American people. I'm doing this against the most powerful lobby in the world, probably the drug lobby, drug and pharmaceutical lobby. But it's one of the most important orders, I think, that's ever been signed, certainly with regard to health care or health in the history of our country. And it's an honor to be a part of it. And
I don't know why that cut off. It's an honor to be a part of it, and he's excited to do it. And he's doing it, like he said, despite the fact that the drug lobby, the pharmaceutical lobby, is one of the largest and one of the most, powerful lobbies in the entire world. Washington, D.C. is lousy with money from the pharmaceutical lobby. They are paying for all kinds of people to do all kinds of things that benefit them and not, the American people and the American taxpayer. In fact, Donald Trump spoke. He used an example from his own personal life. I don't know who he was talking about, but he apparently has some really obese, rich friend. And in true Trump fashion, he outed him and chastised him for his weight problem, while making an example of how Ozempic costs here in the United States are astronomical. No pun intended. I guess we would call them fat astronomical. Thank you very much. Compared to the rest of the world.
I'll tell you a story. A friend of mine who's a businessman, very, very, very top guy. Most of you would have heard of him. A highly neurotic, brilliant businessman, seriously overweight, and he takes the fat shot drug. And he called me up and he said, President, he used to call me Donald, now he calls me President, so that's nice respect. But he's a rough guy, smart guy, very successful, very rich. I wouldn't even know how we would know this, but because he's got comments. President, could I ask you a question? What? I'm in London, and I just paid for this damn fat drug I take. I said, it's not working. He said, I just paid $88. And in New York, I pay $1,300. What the hell is going on?
Donald. Okay, so President Donald Trump has a fat friend who calls him up and says, I take the fat shot. And Donald Trump says it's not working. And he goes, I paid $85 in the UK and I paid $1,300, $1,500 when I'm at home. What the hell is going on? And Donald Trump's like, yeah, that's a prime example of how fat astronomical these prices are for Ozempic and other drugs. It's not just that, it's a bunch of things. And he wants to end it now. He doesn't want his fat friend to have to overpay for these things. He doesn't want his fat friend to be in a position where he's got to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a drug that apparently, doesn't even work for him. But Donald Trump said that ends now. We're not going to do this anymore. We're slashing the price on all of these things.
So for the first time in many years, we'll slash the cost of prescription drugs, and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down by much more, really, if you think 59. If you think of a drug that is sometimes 10 times more expensive, it's much more than the 59%. It depends on the way you want to analyze it, but in one way you could analyze it that way. But between 59 and 80, and I guess even 90%. So when I worked so hard in the first term, and if I got prices down, remember I was the only one to ever get prices down for a full year, but I'd get them down like 2%, and I thought it was like a big deal. Well, we're getting them down 60, 70, 80, 90%, but actually more than that if you think about it in the way mathematically. And Farmer has to say, we're sorry, but we'll not be able to do this any longer to these countries that have been so tough. They've been very tough, nasty. It's trade. And Farmer is also very powerful. And the Democrats have protected Farmer.
They have, and they will probably continue to protect Farmer as well. And that's the interesting thing. Now people are saying, what kind of weird spin are the Democrats going to put on this? What are they going to say? They're going to say, this is illegal. This is immoral. How do you argue with bringing down drug costs for Americans? That's what the Democrats claim they've been doing for years. Joe Biden always claimed he was working to bring down drug costs. He would always say, I brought down the costs of drugs by 15%, which was a lie. And 15% is nowhere near as enough. And when you look at the repercussions, of course, yes, all healthcare is going to be affected by this. You're going to have, for example, the insurance companies, which, I mean, if you have a drug, and let's just say, to keep it easy, let's say it's $100 and you go to the store and you've got a prescription drug plan with your insurance company and you end up paying 20. So what happens? 80% is paid by the insurance company. I mean, it's paid by you because you pay insurance premiums, but $80 is paid by the insurance company. You pay 20. Well, now, if what happens is the drug now only costs 80% of what it used to, or $20, then you can just pay that out of pocket, or the drug company could pay half of that, $10. You could get it for $10. The drug company's saving $70. I would imagine they're going to pass that savings on to the consumer, although knowing the insurance companies, they probably won't. But that would be the thought process, that everything now declines. Everything comes down. Hospital care comes down. Marketing, I mean, everything is going to be less, because more people are going to be able to afford these things. And then as a result, when you have more money that you're not spending on your co-pays and your drugs, you're going to spend that on something else, because as we all know, Americans don't save their money. So it's a really amazing thing. It really is truly what Donald Trump said, the most important and the most life-changing and life-altering Truth Social post and executive order that he's ever signed. However, in the midst of all of this amazingness, what is it that the fake news media wanted to discuss with President Donald Trump? Was it the China deal? No. Was it the last American hostage being released by Hamas? Was it getting peace between Pakistan and India? Don't make me laugh. The fake news media doesn't care about any of that stuff. They don't care about the China deal. They don't care about tariffs. You know what they care about? They care about the free plane that Donald Trump is taking from Qatar. Qatar is offering President Donald Trump a free plane that used to be used by their sultan or their maharaji, or I don't even know what you call the guy. But it's a massively large, very luxurious Qatari jet that they're gifting to President Donald Trump. They're gifting to the country, actually, for President Donald Trump to use as the Air Force One plane. And the reason Donald Trump is taking it is because Boeing has been dragging their feet. They've been wasting everyone's time, and they've been jacking up the price of everything, to boot. And Donald Trump is like, I can't wait for a new plane anymore. By the time this new plane is finished, I'm going to be out of office. So Qatar said, we'll just give you the plane. He's sending it down here to Florida to get retrofitted, and it's going to be the new Air Force One. After President Donald Trump leaves office, the plane will be decommissioned and donated to the Donald J. Trump Presidential Library. Now, in true fake news fashion, they've been misreporting that President Donald Trump is personally accepting the plane as an illegal gift from the Qatari government, that it is a massive threat to our national security, and that Donald Trump is going to be using the plane after he leaves office, which makes it a violation of the emoluments clause, or just a con job, or a bribe, or God even knows what. So they asked him about this at, again, one of the most important press conferences of Donald Trump's life. And Donald Trump said, look, here's what's going on.
Well, I think what happens with the plane is that, we're very disappointed that it's taking Boeing so long to build a new Air Force One. We have an Air Force One that's 40 years old. And if you take a look at that compared to the new plane of the equivalent, stature at the time, it's not even the same ballgame. You look at some of the Arab countries and the planes they have parked alongside of the United States of America plane. It's like from a different planet. And it's close to 40 years old, might be more than 40 years old now. And we, when I first came in, I signed an order to get it built. I took it over from the Obama administration. They had originally agreed. I got the price down much lower. And then when the election didn't exactly work out the way that it should have, a lot of work was not done on the plane because a lot of people didn't know. They made change orders that were so stupid, so ridiculous. And it ended up being a total mess, a real mess. And when I came back, I said, by the way, what's going on with the Boeings that are coming in? Well, sir, they're way behind. And they are. They're way behind. They were way behind. Another mess that I inherited from Biden. And it's going to be a while before we get them. And I think Qatar, who we've helped them a lot over the years in terms of security and safety. I think they, and very, very nicely, and I have a lot of respect for the leadership and for the leader, Qatar. And I think they knew about it because they buy Boeings. They buy a lot of Boeings. And they knew about it. And they said we would like to do something, and if we can get a 747 as a contribution to our Defense Department to use during a couple of years while they're building the other ones, I think that was a very nice gesture. Now, I could be a stupid person and say, oh, no, we don't want a free plane. We give free things out. We'll take one, too. And it helps us out because, again, we're talking about we have 40-year-old aircraft. The money we spend, the maintenance we spend on those planes to keep them tippy-top is astronomical. You wouldn't even believe it. So I think it's a great gesture from Qatar. I appreciate it very much. I would never be one to turn down that kind of an offer. I mean, I could be a stupid person and say, no, we don't want a free, very expensive airplane. But I thought it was a great gesture. And I think it was a gesture because of the fact that we have helped and continue to, we will continue to, all of those countries, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, and others. We keep them safe. If it wasn't for us, they probably wouldn't exist right now. And I think this was just a gesture of good faith. And I don't get it. Someday it'll be like Ronald Reagan. They decommission them. You know, they get to a certain age, they decommission them. It'll go to my library. They're talking about going to my library in years out. But I thought it was a great gesture. And it's something that was done by Ronald Reagan. They actually decommissioned the plane and he put it in his library. And it actually has made the library, I think, a Boeing 707. It's actually made the library more successful. So it was good.
Donald Trump talking about the Qatari plane and his library and what's going to happen and putting everyone's minds at ease. But this is something that the fake news, they just can't let go. Now, they'll say, well, Qatar is in bed with Iran and they support the Muslim Brotherhood and all this other stuff. And yes, there's truth to that. Is Donald Trump accepting a plane from them, though, a bad thing? Is it something that is, and again, it's not Donald Trump accepting the plane. It's the American military. It's a gift to the Defense Department. This plane, and I understand the security threats. Everyone's going to say, oh, this plane it's going to be bugged. It's going to have live wires. They're going to put a bomb on it. And one day Donald Trump's going to be flying down to Mar-a-Lago and boom, it's going to explode. I would imagine that President Donald Trump is not going to get on any plane that has not been fully vetted and searched and checked by the United States military and their team of experts. I imagine that everybody in the international intelligence agencies that we have here in the United States of America, they're going to comb over that entire plane. They're going to make sure there's no listening devices. They're going to make sure there's no random munitions. They're going to make sure it's not booby-trapped at all. And then they're going to retrofit it for use for the president for the next 3 years. And then it goes to his library. Why? Well, because it's not President Donald Trump's personal plane. It is a gift to the United States of America, and then it'll be decommissioned and sent to wherever Donald Trump's library is, hopefully, fingers crossed, here in Florida, but we don't yet have a destination. We do know that it's going to be beautiful because there's about $15 million of ABC's money that's going to go into it, and probably a bunch more from CBS too. But we'll get there. We'll get there in just a minute. And he's right about the Ronald Reagan Library. You've probably seen the Ronald Reagan Library. They do a lot of debates there. They do a lot of events there, and they do it right in front of the plane. One of Donald Trump's most memorable appearances was one of the presidential debates where he was vying for the nomination in 2016, and they were all lined up right in front of the Air Force One model that he was discussing right there at the Reagan Library in California. Not only is there an Air Force One plane, but there's a Marine One helicopter. There's a Sherman tank in the front. They've got an old limousine, the former Beast. They've got all this stuff there because it's part of the history of President Ronald Reagan and the United States of America. Well, that is not enough for the fake news media. They believe that there's some kind of shenanigans going on. And they asked President Donald Trump, what is it that Qatar or whatever you call them, what is it they really want in return?
Has Qatar asked for anything in exchange for that $400 million luxury jumbo jet? And how can the American people be so sure that they will not in the future?
Well, I think what happens with the plane is that, we're very disappointed that it's taking Boeing so long to build a new Air Force One. We have an Air Force One that's 40 years old. And if you take a look at that compared to...
Hold on, that's the one. That leads into the one that I just played. I'm sorry, here it is. So they wanted to know, is it going to be a personal gift to President Donald Trump? And he had to set them straight one more time.
President, what do you say to people who view that luxury jet as a personal gift to you? Why not leave it behind?
You're ABC fake news, right?
Why not?
Only ABC, well, a few of you would. Let me tell you, you should be embarrassed asking that question. They're giving us a free jet. I could say, no, 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 don't give us, I want to pay you $1 billion or 400 million or whatever it is. Or I could say, thank you very much. You know, there was an old golfer named Sam Snead. Did you ever hear of him? He won 82 tournaments. He was a great golfer. And he had a motto: when they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball and you walk to the next hole. A lot of people are stupid. They say, no, no, I insist on putting it. And then they putt it and they miss it. And their partner gets angry at them. You know what? Remember that, Sam Snead. When they give you a putt, you pick it up and you walk to the next hole and you say, thank you very much.
Respectfully, sir, as a businessman.
So Donald Trump, it's always, by the way, Donald Trump can come up with a golf story for any occasion. He can come up with a golf story for any occasion, whether it's, I don't know, Chinese tariffs or border or whatever, or getting a jet from Qatar. He can find some golf reference for any and all situation in his life or in the history of the United States of America. And he shares the story of Sam Snead. If they give you a putt, you say, thank you very much. You pick up your ball, or if you're playing doubles, you pick up your balls and you move on to the next hole. You say, we'll take it. We'll take that. Thank you. And you move on to, and you, because again, what happens if you miss? Then it's a two-stroke deficit. But Donald Trump's like, look, they're going to give us a plane. Am I supposed to say no, thank you? Here's the thing, and you know that this is true because the fake news, all they do is they try to spin things. If President Trump were offered the plane and he didn't take it, and instead he poured more money into Boeing, then what the fake news would have reported is that President Donald Trump is spending tax dollar money on an Air Force One when he could have easily gotten a free plane. But President Donald Trump is too hoity. He doesn't want a used jet. He wants a brand new one, a customized, straight off the line Boeing that costs American taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. That's what Donald Trump wants. That's not true at all. Donald Trump is like, I'll take the used plane. I mean, we got to fix it up a little bit. We got to put a little more gold on it. We got to put a big T on it somewhere, put the presidential seal. But he's not above flying in a used plane if it's a really nice used plane. And it saves the tax dollars. It saves the taxpayers. I mean, think about this. If later on they wanted to put an Air Force One jet in the Trump presidential library, then they would have had to decommission one of the ones that we paid for, and we'd be paying for another one. So the fake news all over him. And Donald Trump's sick of it. He's like, look, you guys, this is an important moment. This is an exciting moment, and you guys are embarrassing yourselves. And ABC, you're the biggest embarrassment of them all.
It's a gift to the Department of Defense, and you should know better. Because you've been embarrassed enough, and so has your network. Your network is a disaster. ABC is a disaster. Here is the bill. Bobby, come on over here. Now you're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President,
This was, of all the Donald Trump press conferences or news conferences, this was one of the most Donald Trump news like, it was amazing. It was true Trump. From the moment he came out and he started talking about all the accomplishments they've had over the weekend, from the moment he came out, he started talking about China trade and the ceasefire in India and Pakistan and the hostages coming home. He started talking about all these amazing things. Then he launched into the executive order where he's going to save trillions and trillions of dollars, he says, on drugs for American consumers. Another great piece of news. Then they go off on this jet tangent, and he starts bad-mouthing an ABC reporter, slamming her for being an embarrassment, saying, you're ridiculous. I'm not going to not say thank you when I get a free plane. Let me tell you the story about some golfer named Sam Snead. And on top of all that, he finds a couple of seconds in between to also make fun of one of his fat friends, who also happens to be very wealthy and is overpaying for Ozempic. I mean, you don't get that in any other presidential press conference. That is truly a Donald Trump press conference like no other. And again, the deal, speaking of the deal's amazing. And he had RFK Jr., the Secretary of Health and Human Services there. He had Dr. Oz there. He had McCary. They were all there. They were all there, and they were all praising this, and they were saying this. I mean, RFK Jr., who, keep in mind, was a Democrat most of his life, comes from a Democrat household, knows a lot of Democrats, said this is something Democrats have wanted forever, and they've been unable to do it.
Mr. President, this is an extraordinary day. This is an issue that, I grew up in the Democratic Party, and every major Democratic leader for 20 years has been making this promise to the American people. This was the fulcrum of Bernie Sanders' runs for presidency, that he was going to eliminate this discrepancy between Europe and the United States. But as it turns out, none of them were doing it. It's one of these promises that politicians make to their constituents, knowing that they'll never have to do it. And the reason they'll never have to do it is because they know that Congress is controlled in so many ways by the pharmaceutical industry. There's at least one pharmaceutical lobbyist for every congressman, every senator in Capitol Hill, and every member of the Supreme Court. By some estimates, 3. Pharmaceutical companies, the industry itself spends 3 times what the next largest lobbyist spends on lobbying. So this was an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything because it was radioactive. They knew you couldn't get it by Congress. We now have a president who is a man of his word, who has the courage. President Trump was taking money from the pharmaceutical industry too. I think they gave you $100 million. But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people. I don't know what, there's writers like Lord Elizabeth Warren or Robert Reich who are saying that President Trump is on this side of the oligarchs. There has never been a president more willing to stand up to the oligarchs than President Donald Trump.
And that is something that is true. President Donald Trump took money from the pharmaceutical companies, and now he's basically shutting them down. Now he's saying, okay, thanks for the money, guys. Now I'm just going to cut all your profits. And it's true. There's going to be a massive amount of layoffs when it comes to lobbyists. You're not going to need all these lobbyists if these go into effect. You're not going to need all these lobbyists if, in fact, this executive order is maintained and upheld and if the Democrats don't fight it. But the problem is there is a lot of money in Washington, D.C. flowing from the pharmaceutical companies to various different elected officials. And that's one of the reasons, by the way, your drug prices are so high. In order to pay the lobbyists, in order to pay the politicians, in order to keep investing in these different various campaigns all over the country, the pharmaceutical companies need millions and millions of dollars. Where do they get that money? They get it from you. They get it from you. They jack up the prices. They use that money to make sure that they can stay in business. They use that money to make sure nobody's going to come after them in Congress, in the Senate, in the White House for years. And you continue to pay the salaries of all those people. Now that the costs are going to come down, I imagine the number of lobbyists is going to come down as well, not to mention all of the marketing and other expenses that they have, because they're going to need to save the money somewhere. And he name-checked Elizabeth Warren. He name-checked Bernie Sanders. He name-checked so many people, saying they are they're one of the reasons why these things have never happened, even though they've been promising it for decades.
But he can't be bought, unlike most of the politicians in this country. And he is standing here for the American people.
Yeah, unlike Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Dr. Oz got up to speak, and Dr. Oz, we haven't heard from really in a long time, but Dr. Oz is there fighting again for these drug prices. President Donald Trump mentioned something about him mentioned how he was a really great doctor, but then he went on TV and ruined his credibility. I don't know if that's exactly how it works, but look, you got 2 former TV stars up there talking about the amazing work that they've been able to do for the American people.
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy. This is the most powerful executive order on pharmacy pricing and healthcare ever in the history of our nation. And it's only happening because we have a president with the fortitude, the guts to stand up to the withering criticism and lobbying that's going to occur as soon as folks hear about the executive order. So on behalf of the child in Philadelphia who's got an autoimmune disease with a $1,000 a month drug, or the older woman in Los Angeles who's on a blood thinner who can't afford her copay, I want to thank President Trump. God bless you for having the guts to take on this industry. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
No, very much. Very, very, very nice. Here. But it was an incredible day all around, and it was, again, one of the most exciting and informative and Trumpiest press conferences I've ever seen. Speaking of press conferences, we're going to get to the China stuff. I covered the China stuff pretty thoroughly in the 47 Daily podcast. If you haven't listened to it yet, you can download that at the47daily.com, and you should listen every single day to the 47 Daily at the47daily.com. It's your daily dose of all things Trump news directly from the White House to my mouth to your ears for the next 4 years. That's our motto at the 47 Daily, and I try to live up to it. I like, mottos are only good if you live up to them. But there was something else that happened over the weekend I guess it was supposed to be a press conference. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what the goal was originally, but basically what happened was you had a group of Congress people, Democrats, all of them, and the mayor of Newark, New Jersey head to a place, an ICE detention center called Delaney Hall, I think it was called. And they were there because they'd heard supposedly there was some chaotic situations going on at the ICE detention center. Now, I imagine if you have a detention center filled with illegal criminal gang members that are about to be shipped out of the United States forever, I imagine it'll be a little chaotic. If you have Tren de Aragua and MS-13 and other people who know that their American dream is about to end, who know that they're about to be sent back to, well, wherever it is they came from, and they're never going to be able to come back in this country, and they'll probably be spending a lot of time in prison. If you have people like that, odds are, they're not going to be happy, and they may create some kind of chaos inside the facility. So Representative LaMonica McIver, real name, by the way, that's not made up, not MacGyver, like, the guy that could make anything out of anything. No, McIver is her name. LaMonica McIver, she headed with a contingent of Congress people and the mayor of Newark down to this facility to take a tour. But they didn't have an appointment or something, or they showed up unannounced, and they demanded that they be able to see the joint, and the ICE agents were about to bring in some transfers. And so it was look, it's a high security detention center. It's a federal facility that's housing illegal migrant gang members. It is under the control of the Department of Homeland Security, and it is something that, they don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a congressman or a mayor or whatnot. First of all, you don't have jurisdiction, and second of all, you're getting in the way. And when you get in the way, they politely ask you to move, and if you don't move, then they're going to politely ask you again. Well, an all-out melee, which is, a French term for, I don't know, I guess scuffle. An all-out melee erupted with ICE agents, law enforcement, the Congress people, and the mayor of Newark, who was eventually arrested. And at the forefront of all of this was Congresswoman LaMonica McIver. There she is. She's in the red, by the way. She's the one in the red. Like, it's like just sticking out like Santa Claus. She's like a black female Santa Claus. And here she is body slamming. She's slamming her body into this ICE agent, trying to get him to move so that she can shove her way past. And this is footage. There's body cam footage. I'm going to show you the body cam footage. This is the body cam footage. You can see here she is. And the ICE agents the police are like, ma'am, step back, man. And she's in their face, and she's screaming and yelling, and she's cursing, and I should actually probably turn this down because she's using a lot of wordy dirds and inappropriate language. Now, they're arresting, by the way. I don't know if you can see this here. They're walking this guy away. They're arresting the mayor of Newark because the mayor of Newark was trespassing. And then when he refused to leave, he continued trespassing. It was aggravated trespassing or something like that. So they took him away in cuffs. And instead of standing down or de-escalating or acting normal, LaMonica McIver and her buddies, the Democrats in Congress, acted the fool and started just going crazy. And they started body slamming the ICE agents, which again, members of Congress body slamming law enforcement agents just isn't a good look. These are the same people. Do you remember? I don't know if you remember, but on January 6th, remember when they were like, anyone who harms law enforcement is a criminal. Anybody who stands in the face of law. You know how many law enforcement officers were harmed on January 6th? Lock these people up and throw them away. And now, look at that. Just 4 or 5 years later, they're at an ICE detention facility and they're body slamming these people, expecting what? No repercussions? Expecting that they can just go back home, go back to their offices? There will be, according to a representative from Homeland Security, there will be arrests of members of Congress after they looked at all of this body cam footage. In fact, here, I have it here. I had this clip from yesterday. This is somebody on CNN. Here it is. Members of Congress will be arrested according to what they've seen on this body cam footage.
We should let viewers know there will likely be more arrests coming. We actually have body camera footage of some of these members of Congress assaulting our ICE enforcement officers, including body slamming a female ICE officer. So we will be showing that to viewers very shortly.
You say a video
American
of
people should know
members
the
of
facts.
Congress body slamming ICE
That's correct.
officials?
That's correct, sir. It's disgusting.
Okay, and so if you have that video, are you suggesting that members of Congress will be arrested who were there yesterday?
This is an ongoing investigation, and that is definitely on the table.
Who has the video?
ICE does, and we will be releasing that very shortly.
Okay. Let's talk about...
Yeah, that guy had no idea what he wanted to talk about after that. He was just shocked. He was shocked that they would arrest members of Congress for breaking the law, especially Democrats. The only members of Congress they want arrested are Republicans. They just want, what's his name? George, not Lopez, the other guy, the guy that just got arrested and sent to prison for 7 years. That's who they want arrested. They want Jamal Bowman, who pulled the fire alarm, to walk away scot-free, which basically he did. But they want LaMonica McIver and all of her cohorts to be able to body slam ICE agents and trespass on federal property and burst into secure ICE detention facilities. They want them to be able to do all that without any kind of jail time, without any kind of arrest, without any repercussions whatsoever, because they're Democrats. And it's their right and their duty. LaMonica McIver, by the way, if you're trying to remember her, she's the one that was screaming and yelling about shutting down the city and declaring war on Elon Musk.
We will not take this. We will fight back. Fight back. Fight back. And as I close out, because I know we've been out here for a long time, and goddamn it, shut down the city. We are at war. Anytime a person can pay $250 million into a campaign and they be given full access to the Department of Treasury of the United States of America, we are at war.
Yeah, she's at war with Elon Musk. She's going to shut down the city. By the way, I don't know if you noticed this. She's always wearing her same red jacket. That's like her battle jacket. She was wearing it yesterday when she was assaulting ICE officers. She was wearing it when she was body slamming, which thank God she does, because she's easy to spot, right? It's easy to spot her. It's not like Where's Waldo where she's hidden. She's right there. Oh, here she is body slamming again. Oh, and that is, I'm telling you, that's a big body. That's a big body. She probably needs that fat shot drug that Donald Trump was talking about earlier today. But that's where they are. That's where we are. We have now we've now devolved to Congress members, when they're not on Capitol Hill, going to federal prisons and attacking federal officers and thinking they can get away with it. In fact, blaming the federal officers. That was LaMonica McIver's story when she was interviewed by CNN later that day. She was asked about it, and she said, "This is reckless behavior."
What all of you watch occurred is just how reckless ICE is. It is unacceptable that me, as a member of Congress, as a black woman here in this city, was just assaulted by multiple ICE officers, while regional directors of ICE watched it happen. Since we toured the whole facility with them, no one offered an apology or said anything to me about what occurred out here. Not only was I assaulted, but Congressman Bonnie Watson was assaulted, and of course Congressman Rob Menendez was roughed up as he was trying to protect us. It makes no sense, and it is highly unacceptable how this administration is trying to restrict Congress from doing their bare duties and the responsibilities that the people have elected us to do. What we just
By the way, that's a well-placed train horn. I don't know who placed that train there, but that was a very well-placed train whistle to try to drown her out. Look, I don't know why she thinks, again, because she's a congressman and a black woman, she has rights that the rest of us don't. Congress people, to use their own favorite phrase, are not above the law. No one is above the law. How many times have we heard that? No one is above the law. It doesn't matter if you're a congressperson. It doesn't matter if you're a female congressperson. It doesn't matter if you're a black female congressperson. You are not above the law. And when a large federal agent with a bulletproof vest and a rifle says, do not go there, and you go there, you are inciting some kind of an issue. And the reason you didn't get an apology is because you're the one that did something wrong. The reason you didn't get an apology is because these people are doing their jobs trying to keep these federal prisoners inside this facility. I mean, if as a member of Congress, you would think that you would have enough respect for law enforcement agents, many of whom are, again, your constituents. You know, this is a local facility, Delaney Hall. I imagine there's a lot of citizens of Newark or whatever city her district's in. I imagine there's a lot of her constituents there, and she is putting their lives at risk. She's putting their health at risk. There could be all kinds of things that happen as a result of her actions. She doesn't care. All she cares about is making a scene. And don't think for a second, by the way, that she wasn't a little miffed or jealous that Jasmine Crockett and AOC were getting all the attention. I mean, think about that. Jasmine Crockett's on the news all the time. Jasmine Crockett's making appearances here, there, and everywhere. She's saying stupid stuff. She's talking about Greg Abbott being Governor Hot Wheels. She's cursing left, right, and center. Al Green got censured because he waved the cane in the air. Don't think for a minute that these Congress people are going, all right, what do I have to do to get some Jasmine Crockett airtime? What do I have to do to get some Jasmine Crockett attention? I mean, I can't just cuss anymore. You know what I probably have to do? I probably have to try to break into an ICE facility and assault some ICE agents. All right, let's try that. And it worked. Maybe now she'll be on Jimmy Kimmel. Maybe now she'll get to do all the late night talk shows or go get invited on The View. That's how you know you've really made it big as a Democrat operative. If you are a Democrat in Congress, and you can do something that draws enough attention to yourself where you can go on The View, that's really the goal that all these people have. Can I sit next to Sunny Hotson and Joy Behar and have them praise me for what I did, which is basically against the law? AOC, speaking of which, wasn't going to let this crisis go. She wasn't going to let LaMonica McIver get away with hogging the spotlight on this one. So AOC jumped on her Instagram and she jumped right into the fray, and she wanted everybody to know that as the leader of the Democrat Party, this is not okay.
And now what DHS is trying to say, again, they're using public intimidation because they know that they cannot come for us all. They know that they cannot come for us all. And recently what they said is that DHS is allegedly looking into arresting members of Congress who were showing up for their legal and constitutional obligation to conduct oversight. If anyone's breaking the law in this situation, it's not members of Congress, it's the Department of Homeland Security. It's people like Tom Homan and Secretary Kristi Noem. You lay a finger on someone, on Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, on Representative, or any of the representatives that were there, you lay a finger on them, we are going to have a problem. Because the people who are breaking the law are the people who are not abiding by it. And it is enshrined in the law that members of Congress who show up to ICE and CBP facilities are required to be granted access, legally required to be granted access. And they legally cannot be inhibited from accessing these facilities to conduct their constitutional obligation to investigate and conduct oversight. So if Kristi Noem wants to break the law, that's on her. But it sure as hell is not someone like Representative Robert Menendez that needs to be arrested, okay?
Yeah, okay. So basically what she's saying is they are constitutionally allowed to just barge in anywhere at any time. And that's not true. Yes, they have the constitutional power of oversight, but they can't just show up in the middle of the night and demand access. They have to be granted access at a time when it's convenient or when it's not interfering with the business at hand. They can be granted access, but it'd be nice if you called ahead. And if there is currently a shipment of dangerous thug, murderous, gang member, child human trafficker criminals coming through, you're going to have to wait a minute. I mean, there is nothing in the Constitution, there's nothing in the law that says within 30 seconds of arriving at a government facility, a federal facility, you need to be inside the lobby. Nothing that says that of the kind. It says you can have access, you can conduct oversight, but you don't get to wander around freely. I mean, these are secure federal prisons. These are secure federal detention centers. I don't know why you would wander around a federal detention center without a guard anyway, but that's where we are. AOC now claiming that Tom Homan and Kristi Noem have violated the Constitution by roughing up these Congress people who were trying to break into a secure facility without an appointment. It's really again, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that this is what the Democrat Party has come to, but this is what the Democrat Party has come to. It's a one-upmanship. It's a race to the bottom. Who can curse the most? Who can make the biggest scene? Who can say the dumbest thing? Who can be the most insulting? Who can be the biggest pot stirrer without actually getting anything done? Who can call Donald Trump the most names? Who can take the most taxpayer-funded trips to El Salvador to try to placate illegal immigrants? Who can make the biggest scene or pretend that they care about illegals more than anyone else? That's what the Democrat Party is all about. And moving into 2026, I don't know who's going to be in charge of the party. Oh, yes, I do. David Hogg. They're going to have their work cut out for them. Do you remember when Hakeem Jeffries, who's the minority leader, officially, we all know it's AOC, but officially, Hakeem Jeffries is the minority leader in the House of Representatives. Do you remember when everybody flew to El Salvador and then they came back empty-handed? And then he said, look, no more trips to El Salvador. You're embarrassing yourselves and us at the same time. Well, I imagine now, sometime this week, he's going to send out a letter saying, please, no more assaults on federal officers. No more barging into ICE facilities. You're not doing us any good for the midterms in 2026. Someone who's doing great for the midterms in 2026 is President Donald Trump and his team of real, superstars. I mean, probably all stars at this point. Well, if you knew, I almost feel bad for everybody on Donald Trump's team because, for example, Marco Rubio did something incredible on Friday night. Last week, Pakistan and India got into it. India shot missiles into Pakistan, killing like 9 people. Pakistan said, we will get revenge. And there was going to be a whole big dust up. There was going to be some kind of escalation. They were worried because they're both nuclear powers. Everyone thought we're on the brink of nuclear war. And Marco Rubio, Friday night, stayed up all night. And he somehow was able to get this entire thing worked out. And he got a ceasefire agreement. And when we all woke up Saturday morning, that was the big news. Ceasefire agreement. Pakistan and India are not going to destroy each other. They're not going to start World War III. By the way, props to Marco Rubio, who's turning out to be one of the most skilled, talented, respected, and effective secretaries of state we've ever had. And that was short-lived because later that same day, Scott Bessent and Jamieson Greer went to China and they cut a deal with China to lower tariffs.
We have reached an agreement on a 90-day pause and substantially moved down the tariff levels. Both sides on the reciprocal tariffs will move their tariffs down 115%. We had very robust discussions. Both sides showed great respect.
And they got the deal done. And now the tariff battle has de-escalated and we have 90 days to come to some kind of formalized long-term agreement, which should be ample time because Donald Trump's team works very, very quickly. Again, look at what they were able to accomplish in the first 100 days. You think they can't solidify a deal with China in the next 90? Pfft, child's play. And so then everyone was celebrating Scott Bessent and Jamieson Greer and the whole team on the ground in Geneva. But then all of a sudden you blink and Donald Trump's got a drug deal that he's put in place to lower prescription drug costs. And he's got Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr. there, and he's got Dr. Oz and his entire team at NIH and everywhere else working around the clock. So all of a sudden, Marco Rubio was the hero. Then it was Scott Bessent. Now it's RFK Jr. And then hostages are being released so we can thank Marco Rubio again. It's amazing. As the Democrats are working diligently to race to the bottom and not do anything effective at all, the Republicans are doing the opposite. Donald Trump's team, they're trying to one-up themselves on actual accomplishments. They're trying to, each one of them, be the most accomplished head of their agency ever. And it's working like a charm. And if the Democrats did as many good things as they do bad, if they spent as much time trying to fix problems as they do cause problems, I mean, this whole country, we would already be where we need to be. But the Democrats they're trying to gum up the works. They're trying to showboat. They're trying to grandstand, and they're trying to make problems where there aren't any. And Donald Trump is trying to solve problems where there are many. And it's fun to watch, and it's great to see. And all we need now is Congress and the Senate to hold the line and, of course, increase their numbers so we can continue to see this kind of political dominance like we haven't ever seen before. One other thing that we're working on is the FAA. And this guy, Sean Duffy, and I knew very little about Sean Duffy. I knew he was a congressperson. I knew he worked on Fox News, but I didn't really know him as a person. But now I see him all the time. And that's another reason, by the way, I figured out why Donald Trump stole all these reporters from Fox News. I know because they're always on television. They're always giving press conferences. Sean Duffy had to go on the Sunday shows to talk about the FAA and what kind of disarray it's in. Listen to this. The FAA and our air traffic control system is so old and so dilapidated that they can't even find parts. They can't run down to, AutoZone or wherever. I guess it wouldn't be AutoZone. They can't run down to air traffic controller zone and get new parts. Listen to this.
I'm concerned about the whole airspace, right? The equipment that we use, much of it we can't buy parts for new. We have to go on eBay and buy parts if one part goes down. You're dealing with really old equipment. We're dealing with copper wires, not fiber, not high-speed fiber. And so this is concerning. Is it safe? Yes, we have redundancies, multiple redundancies in place to keep you safe when you fly. But we should also recognize we're seeing stress on an old network, and it's time to fix it.
Bottom line, is it safe to fly in the United States right now?
We are the safest airspace, for sure. And traveling by air is way safer than any other mode of transportation, which is why I take it, my family takes it. But again, that doesn't mean you don't look over the horizon and say, hey, if there is a major outage, could that be a risk to life? Of course it could be, which is why we fix it.
Yeah. And so you've got, hold on, there's breaking news. And so you've got this guy now saying, look, our system is so old, so dilapidated, so bad that we can't even get parts unless we go on eBay. We've got to buy parts off of eBay to help our plane stay in the air safely. And we're still the safest. It's still the safest means of travel in the entire world, but we've got to maintain it. We've got to keep it that way. And we're going to start from the ground up and we're going to rebuild it because Pete Buttigieg was, every day Sean Duffy gets out there, we realize just how bad Pete Buttigieg was and just how ridiculous his time in office. I mean, there's not one accomplishment that Pete Buttigieg had when he was transportation secretary. And in fact, he just exacerbated a system that was really, really bad.
What can you tell us about this latest incident and why does this keep happening?
So I'll tell you, listen, the system is old, right? This is a system that's 25 at best, sometimes 50 years old. The Congress and the country haven't paid attention to it, right? They expect it to work. And so now I think the lights are blinking, the sirens are turning, and they're saying, listen, we have to fix this because what you see in Newark is going to happen in other places across the country.
And we don't want that. We don't want that. But that's what happens when you have a transportation secretary who ignores problems and does absolutely nothing for 4 years. You get a new guy to come in and say, whoa. Let's take a long, hard look at this. We're going to fix it. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we're going to fix it. I just noticed, I flipped onto the old X and I just noticed it looks like back in Newark at that same detention facility, there's some, let's see, what is this? Nick Sorter reports, loony leftists are currently blocking transports of child rapists, murderers, and violent gang members from entering the Newark ICE facility. Lock them all up. I'm trying to figure out. They look like religious leaders. I guess I see a Hasidic Jew there. I see this guy has I don't think he's a priest. He's got a collar that he could be a priest. There's there's a woman. She's not a priest. And then this guy's got the little thing. Anyway, I don't know who these people are, but they are apparently blocking the same detention facility, keeping these transports from getting in. I would imagine that's not going to end well for them. I mean, again, you're talking about an ICE facility, and you're talking about an ICE facility, and you're talking about dangerous thug criminals, and these are not people that we want. These are not people that we want to just be hanging out. In Newark. What is happening? Sorry, I'm rolling through my X live because I was looking for that video. Here we go. Here's CNN. Look at this. That's CNN talking about the hostages being released. Yeah, no, I guess that's it. We just have the one video of them. What's Halle Berry doing in bed with this guy? It's weird. I don't need to know. That's a little TMI. Anyway, listen, Donald Trump isn't even done. There is way more that he's got to do. And I mean, again, you think about this nonstop 24/7 action coming out of his White House. It's his entire administration. He's in the Middle East right now working on more peace deals. Donald Trump isn't done yet. He's going to work around the clock. He's going to build a better America. He's going to make sure that we are in a position where we are militarily the dominant superpower, economically the dominant superpower. He's going to make sure that we have high-paying jobs, that we have all kinds of manufacturing here. We're going to be self-sufficient, reliant. We're going to be the energy hub of the world. We're going to be able to support ourselves with energy, and we're going to have excess energy that we can then export out to our friends and allies. We are going to be, again, the dream country that you and me and him and everyone else that voted for him have been wanting, have been demanding. And it's going to be, Donald Trump every single day is doing more and more things in a way that it's making it harder and harder for the left to criticize him. And when they do, they look ridiculous. You'll notice nobody has criticized yet Donald Trump's drug policy on the left. I'm sure that's coming. I'm sure they're going to be like, we don't want lower drug prices. I mean, we did when Joe Biden was president, but we don't now that it's Donald Trump's win. They don't want Donald Trump taking the dub, taking a victory lap. They don't want RFK Jr. anywhere near anything good for the healthcare industry, because then they would have been wrong about him being Health and Human Services Secretary. They were adamant. Democrats and many Republicans alike were opposed to RFK Jr. He had a very, very difficult time getting his nomination pushed through, but he was confirmed, and he's now taken the lead. And look at what he's been able to do in the first 100 days with the help of President Donald Trump. The dyes coming out of foods, voluntarily, I might add, by some of these food industries, by some of these food manufacturers and cereal manufacturers and snack manufacturers. And now we've got this massive bill cutting the price of prescription drugs by 50, 60, 70, or 80%. And the Democrats didn't want this guy anywhere near the Department of Health and Human Services. They're looking like idiots. I mean, bigger idiots than they usually do. It's really amazing. Look at Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth has kept this country safe. Pete Hegseth has made sure that, the military recruitment is through the roof. And don't think that's not part of it. Every time Marco Rubio picks up the phone to call India and say, don't do it. Every time he picks up the phone to Pakistan and says, nah, buddy. Every time he goes to Ukraine and says it's time for a ceasefire deal, every time they sit down with China and negotiate tariffs, don't think for a second that the record-breaking military recruitment numbers we're seeing, 100% already for the year of Army recruitment, 110 for the Marine Corps, 100 for the Navy, 120 for Space Force. Every single branch of the military is seeing record recruitment. People want to fight for this country. They want to fight for this president. They want to fight for this Secretary of Defense. They feel safe. They feel secure. And parents feel safe and secure sending their boys and girls to fight for America under President Donald Trump, under Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth. And every single time a new recruit signs on the dotted line, China knows, Ukraine knows, Russia knows, India knows, Pakistan knows, Hamas knows, the Houthis know. They see that every single day that Donald Trump is in charge of this country, every decision that Donald Trump makes, they see more and more people are stepping up to fight for the cause. And our military is getting bigger and badder and bolder and more lethal. And that changes everything. That makes every decision easier when the phone rings and it's President Donald Trump or Marco Rubio or anybody else from his administration on the other line. The answer is usually, yes, of course, whatever you want, sir. That's usually what happens. Listen, we're going to do an after party here in just a minute. We're going to go into the Kayetriot Club. If you're not a member of the Kayetriot Club, it's really easy to join. Go to Kayetriots.com, KAYETRIOTS.com, and sign up for our locals channel. If you become a supporter of the Kayetriot Club, then you get to join us. We have these after parties where we just shoot the breeze. We talk a little bit more about politics. I take you behind the scenes, backstage at Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. You can help us out. In fact, there's a lot of times when I give you like a preview of things to come. If you really want to be in the know, if you want to be the first to know, the Kayetriot Club is the way to go. Plus, you get free stickers. And I know that there's a lot of people that need their stickers. I'm sorry, we're waiting on new ones. We're going to get them out ASAP. But in addition to the stickers, you get a discount, a massive discount at the Mark Kaye shop. Really, and it's a cool group of people too. So if you want to join us, we're going to do that here in just a minute. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you so much for being part of our Kayetriots. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you're getting this content we're here every single day, 1 p.m. Eastern. We're posting videos all weekend long. I posted a couple bangers. If there's some breaking news, I'll let you know about it. Follow us on all of our platforms. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast because that is the main source of information. And you can get it and listen to it wherever you are, whenever you want it, at the gym, in the car, at the airport. I don't know where you're listening. Wherever you're listening to me, thank you so much. Make sure that you're getting this content all the time, because the fight continues. You see these crazy people. You see these lunatics. They're not just yelling and screaming anymore. They're not just saying we need to get out there and get in your face and we need to attack Republicans. They're now actually attacking people. They're attacking ICE agents. And if you think that these people body slamming ICE agents aren't going to come after you next, oh, you got another. They'll gladly body slam you. They'll gladly throw their weight around literally and figuratively to get in your way, because that's how desperate they are. And that's why it's a continued fight. And that's why we need to stay together. We need to stay informed. We need to stay strong so that we can all continue to save the Republic. After party begins in 3 minutes.